Hello YouTube and welcome to another moto vlog coming at you from my computer room in Sterling, Virginia. We're riding around today in Northern Virginia and Northern West Virginia, and I'm going to be bringing you a bit of a different approach than what I normally do. Typically what we see is I talk about my ride and I talk about what's going on the screen, and I chit chat about my life, but this time I have something a little different. I'm trying to maybe impart some knowledge onto some of my riding buddies and maybe some of you random people on the internet who I don't know who happen to stumble upon this video. So let's get started. The topic today is 5 deadly sins that you can make while riding on the Twisties. So riding Twisties is tons of fun, but it's also quite dangerous. Statistically speaking, as motorcyclists, we're more likely to crash on our own, basically by running off the road in a twisty road. So today I basically have 5 reasons, or 5 philosophical things to think about to help you stay in your lane and stay on the road and stay safe and have a really fun time riding the Twisties. So let's start with cardinal sin number 1. Now this isn't like the worst sin you can commit or anything like that. They're all pretty much equal in terms of severity, so don't think that these are in any particular order. More so they're in the order that I thought would be best for the presentation. So cardinal sin number 1, that is adding throttle and lean angle at the same time. So why did I start with this one? Well, this is because this has been something that's been beat into my head a lot with various classes that I've taken, and it's something that I've seen happen to some pretty prolific YouTubers as of late. Now, I'm not going to name names, but these YouTubers all had crashes because they added throttle while they were adding lean angle. What I mean by this is you are going into a turn and you're, say, making a left-hand turn and you're pushing on the left bar to turn left. And as you're pushing on the left bar to turn left, you decide that, maybe you're not going as fast as you'd like, and you give the bike a little bit of throttle to speed it up. Now, most of the time, you're going to get away with this. No harm, no foul. But every now and again, something, the road conditions, your tire conditions, how much throttle, how much lean angle, the temperature outside, the phases of the moon, that kind of thing will all coordinate, and basically the bike will just slide out from under you and you're going to be on the ground sliding. So, why do we do this? Now, the number one reason I think we add throttle and lean angle is because of over slowing the bike in a straight line. Now, we learn in the Motorcycle Safety Foundation course to slow down in a straight line, look through the turn, push on the bar, and then roll on the throttle. And that's all well and good, but what can happen is, while you're still pushing on the bar, increasing your steering angle, you decide that you're not going fast enough. Now, that's not good. That basically means you've overslowed the bike and that you're deciding to make up for that error by accelerating through the turn early. And I really want to tell all of you, ladies and gentlemen, that please don't do that. If you overslow the bike, decrease your lean angle. Don't either, well, I wouldn't say that. If you overslow the bike, deal with it. Just deal with the fact that maybe it's going to take you a little longer than you'd like to get through the turn. If your turning radius is too tight and you actually are turning more than you think, well then push on the opposite bar. So say you're making a left turn and you're actually turning too tightly left, push on the right bar a little bit and give it a little throttle. That's fine. But if you're still pushing on that left bar, increasing your lean angle, and you give it some throttle, your chances of crashing are real. It's not going to happen every time, but it's definitely possible. So guys, that's the first one, really keep that in mind. When you go through the turn, slow, look, push, then roll. Don't push and roll at the same time. I really implore you. Now, those of you who employ trail braking should know very well that, there's advanced techniques that, you can brake and gas at the same time and brake and throttle at the same time and do all kinds of fancy stuff. That's not the audience who I'm talking to. I'm really talking to people who aren't trail braking. Because that's when this typically happens. Either you're not trail braking and you overslowed the bike in a straight line, or say you're accelerating from a stop and, say, making a right-hand turn or a left-hand turn, or you're pulling onto the road from, say, a turn-off, and you're turning and accelerating. You really don't want to do that. There's a limit, You can turn and accelerate a little bit, but if you upset the bike's suspension too much, you're going to slide out very, very quickly, and you're probably going to low side, and hopefully you don't high side. That is a possibility, because if the bike starts to slide and then you roll off the throttle as the bike slides, instead of low siding, you might actually high side. So that's just no fun, guys. So again, keep in mind, don't increase your throttle while you're increasing your lean angle. Now, the one thing I want to keep in mind is, do very long turns, you do have maintenance throttle. So you are actually maintaining your lean angle through the turn and giving the bike just enough throttle to maintain your speed. As a lot of people will say, your radius equals your miles per hour. And that's true. You need to give the bike a little bit of throttle to maintain your radius. That's not what I'm saying. See, you're not increasing your lean angle, you're maintaining your lean angle. So maintaining throttle while maintaining lean angle is totally fine. What you don't want to do is increase your throttle while you're still turning the bike into the turn. Alright, so as I beat that one over the head, as it's been beaten over my head, keep it in mind. Always think about that. Don't roll on the throttle until you're good and ready. The other thing is, once that you might want to keep in mind is, don't roll on the throttle until you know you don't have to roll off of the throttle. That can help a lot. So the next thing, deadly sin number 2, is charging corners. Now, charging corners basically means going into the corner too fast and not being able to take the line you'd like. That's what I consider to be charging a corner. Charging a corner, again, going into the corner too fast and not being able to maintain the line that you'd like to maintain. So going wide. Why do we go wide? Because, again, we're entering the corner too quickly. Now, this is a mistake that I think a lot of riders don't make all the time. It's not as prolific of a mistake as deadly sin number 1, but it can have much more disastrous consequences. Because charging a corner just once can put you out of your lane, which either means you're off the road or you're on the wrong side of traffic in the twisties, right? Most twisties are one lane on one side and one lane on the other side of traffic. Or one lane in one direction, one lane in the opposite direction. So why do we charge corners? Well, charging corners can happen for a ton of reasons, and I'm actually thinking that the next 3 deadly sins are going to explain why we charge corners more than I would like to explain now. So what happens if you are charging a corner? You go into the corner and you go too fast. Well, the number one thing you can do is trail brake. Now, unfortunately, if you haven't practiced trail braking a lot and you haven't learned the techniques of how to properly trail brake either through a class or through extensive practice on your own, well, in a life or death situation, it's not a great time to try it for the first time. But really, what you're going to have to do to save yourself from running off the road or running onto the opposite side of traffic is stay on those brakes. Slow down in a straight line as much as you can, and then trail off the brakes as you apply your steering angle. You have 100 points of grip, so 100 points of grip go to braking in a straight line. Then, as you start churning in, points of grip go to your churn. So you have to decrease those points of grip from your braking. This is not something you want to learn in the moment. So my best bet I can give to you as a rider is, well, take a class and learn how to trail brake, or slow down and focus on technique, okay? Don't worry about your speed so much. And especially, guys, do not look at your speedometer or your tachometer while you're riding through the twisties, okay? That is a very, very bad idea. I wouldn't call it a deadly sin, but it's something that's going to really throw you off. Now, if you're a new rider and you're trying to just putter through the twisties and get through it without crashing, again, don't just stare at your speedo and think, oh, I'm going less than the speed limit, that means I must be safe. That's not the case. You need to ride well within your vision and within your limits. So keep it slow. Don't charge corners, and if you do charge corners, please, I just don't give up. Stay on the brakes and try to trail off the brakes as you turn the bike. Ugh. And I know that's bad advice, but what good advice can I give you? You've already messed up and you're already running off the road. I mean, I can't save you, unfortunately. And that's what makes number 2 such a difficult situation to deal with. So let's move on to number 3. Now this is where we get into more of the philosophy. Number 1 and 2 were kind of process things, right? Number 1 was really a technique thing, right? And number 2 is more of a mindset thing mixed with a technique thing. Now number 3 is going to be riding beyond your knowledge of the corner. So this one's a little tough to explain. What does a knowledge of the corner mean? Well, knowledge of your corner can be summed up by 2 points on a line segment. So on the left point of our line segment, we have no knowledge whatsoever. This would be going down a road you've never been down before, and you encounter a blind turn. A turn that's obscured, say, by cars coming the other way, or by trees, or by hills. You have no knowledge of what's going on through this turn. That means you need to assume the worst, that you need to really slow down and ride through that corner very gingerly, okay? So that if anything bad happens, if the corner suddenly tightens up, or if there's a fallen tree, or if there's a car stopped, or if anything bad has happened, you're able to stop in time and keep yourself in your lane and out of trouble. Now on the right-hand side of this line segment, the right point is something that never happens on the road, really, but maybe is a situation that would happen on the racetrack. And this is, I know 100% what's going on, and I have 100% confidence I can drive through this corner with my eyes closed, literally, and I know exactly where my braking point is, I know exactly where my turn-in point is, I know exactly where my apex is, the apex that I choose, I know exactly where that's going to be, I know exactly where my corner exit is, I know all these things, and I know exactly the engine sound, I know exactly what the sound of the engine should be, and the gear I'm going to be in as I go through this turn. Again, I'm not looking at my tachometer or my speedometer. I can actually feel and hear the speed that I need to be going. That's 100% confidence. Now that never happens on the road because there's always that what if on the road. You don't have flag marshals. You don't have airbag vests, typically. You don't have all these things that you'd have on the track that give you that confidence. So typically you're going to be riding somewhere between 0%, no confidence, and maybe 90%, I could drive this road in my sleep. So I can drive this road in my sleep. I've already done a sighting lap of the road, and everything's good. Now I can maybe drive at 60, 70% tops of my ability. Okay? Now that's a hard thing to explain, driving at 60-70% of my ability, but it's a feeling. Now, if you're all the way on the left and you have no knowledge, don't drive at 5 to 10% of your ability. Drive very slow, okay? When you start outriding your knowledge of the corner and you're riding to a level of your ability beyond your knowledge of the corner, you're going to get in trouble. This is where you're going to start charging corners. This is where you're going to start charging corners. That's the real consequence of this. So deadly sin number 2 tends to come from deadly sin number 3. So what do you do if you're riding, beyond your limits? Well, it's an ego thing, guys. You know what? And this comes into deadly sin number 4. So let's just jump right into that. Deadly sin number 4, and this to me is probably the worst one. This is the one you need to think about the most when you're riding. Because typically we don't ride by ourselves, right? Especially as newer riders. When we're going out and exploring and doing this, that, and the other, we go with other riders. So the worst thing you can do is follow the vehicle in front of you. By vehicle, I mean motorcycle or car. Alright? Please, guys, do not follow the motorcycle or car that is in front of you. Now, what I mean by follow is trying to do what they do. So you're trying to brake when that guy in front of you brakes. You're trying to turn in when the guy in front of you turns in. You're trying to apex where that guy in front of you apexes. And you're trying to exit the corner where the guy in front of you exits. And on top of that, you're trying to maintain the same speed that the person in front of you is maintaining. This is a very, very dangerous situation. Okay? It can cause you, 1, to charge corners, which is not good, and it 2 can cause you to get on the throttle before you have stopped increasing your lean angle. Okay? So deadly sin 1 and 2 are easily caused by deadly sin number 4. So what do you do? I mean, when you're riding with a friend and you're riding behind them, you can't just pretend like they're not there, right? Because if you pretend like they're not there and you look right through them, maybe you're faster than them. Maybe you run right into the back of them. You have to look at their bike and make sure that you're maintaining a safe distance. So that's my tip number 1. Don't ride close to the rider in front of you, okay? Just don't do it. Keep at least a few seconds of a gap. Keep a nice big gap on the twisties. And the more risk you're assuming, the closer you are riding to your limit, the further that gap should be, okay? The other thing you can do is ride your own ride. Like, let the rider in front of you take off. Let them pull away from you. Ride your own ride. Pick your own braking points. Pick your own turn-in point. Pick your own apex, and pick your own corner exit point. Okay, you're never going to improve as a rider if you just copy what someone else does. Okay, when you're copying the person in front of you, not only are you putting yourself in a dangerous situation, you're also churning your brain off a little bit. Instead of gaining these skills, gaining these abilities to read roads and decide your own lines and your own speeds, you're relying on someone else, and that's not improving your skills. So yeah, it's just not a good way to get faster. It's a lot like the racing line in racing games. Don't let someone else tell you what to do. Use your own skills and your own judgment. Ride within your limits, of course, but use your own skills and your own judgment to figure out what to do. So let's recap again. These first 4 things are all about ego in a sense, right? So the biggest reason someone is going to commit deadly sin number 1, okay, is because they're trying to go fast. They're trying to satisfy something within themselves. They entered the corner, they overslowed the bike, and they turned into the corner, and they realized that they could carry more speed through the corner than they are. So instead of just sucking it up and going slowly through the corner, they give the bike more throttle while they're increasing their lean angle, and it just ends in disaster, okay? It's not always going to cause you to crash, but again, in some cases it does. That's all an ego thing. Keep your ego in check. If you make a mistake, own that mistake in the moment. You know what I mean? If you're going to go slow through a corner, just go slow through the corner. Who are you trying to impress? Who are you trying to keep up with? We're here on the streets, okay? So that's the same thing with the second one. Charging a corner is typically caused by trying to either keeping up with someone or riding outside your knowledge of the corner. So it's the same thing. Put your ego away and ride more slowly. It's okay to go slow, guys. Look, if someone starts coming up and tailing you, like, say, a car that knows the road like the back of their hand, and they come up on your butt through the twisties, and you don't know what to do, just pull over on the shoulder. Put your hand up. Put your left hand up. Okay? Slow down gradually. And when you get nice and slow, pull over on the shoulder, okay? And let the person go by you. Act like a bicyclist, you know? You know how people pass bicyclists on the twisties. Just let the car go around you. It's better to do that than to crash, okay? So for cardinal sin number 3, which I don't remember right now. What were we talking about again? Okay. Twisties, or, overriding. It's all overriding, guys. I mean, I'm sorry that I got a little lost. We're already 21 minutes in. But what I'm trying to say here, okay, is that, again, leave your ego at the door. Yeah. Cardinal sin number 3 is not riding within your limits. And why would you not ride within your limits, right? Well, because you're trying to impress someone. That someone might be yourself. It might be your girlfriend on, YouTube. It might be your followers or subscribers. It might be the person behind you. It might be the person in front of you. It could be anybody or any group of people. But guys, using your riding to impress other people, especially as a beginner, is not a great way to have a long riding career, okay? So I really implore you, ride for many reasons. Ride for any reason, but don't ride to impress, okay? So here's the 5th and final deadly sin. It's a little separate from the first 4, so I'm putting it here after my little rant. But the 5th one is lapse of concentration. No matter how good you are, okay, you're only as good as you are in the moment, okay? So if you get tired and your mind starts to wander, that's not good. If you're on, say, a mind-altering substance and your mind starts to wander, that's not good. Okay? No matter how skilled you are, if your mind is not in the game, in the moment, 100%, then you are not going to ride well, and you're liable to make any of those first 4 deadly sins. Any of them. Okay? And you're especially going to be liable to do the second one, charging corners, okay? You're just going to zone out, and then the next thing you know, the corner's there in front of you, and you forgot to slow down, right? Or, what about riding on a straight road? You zone out, and now all of a sudden, there's an intersection and a red light, and you're running through a red light, and there's cars coming across, and you T-bone somebody. You know what I mean? This can happen at any time. So my biggest strategy is, if you start to feel tired or drowsy or your mind's wandering, okay, stop riding for a bit. Pull over, get your mind right. Maybe take a nap. Do what you have to do, okay? Also, don't ride while you're impaired on any substances, you know? I'm not going to go into details there. Don't do it. Number 3. If you're really angry or really stressed or have a lot on your mind for whatever reason, consider not riding, okay? So say, and that goes even for people with, say, Cenas or Cardos. If you're on your Cena and someone gives you a phone call, maybe consider pulling over, especially if you're riding through some technical twisties or if you're riding through like a boulevard where there are tons of intersections. So those are my 5 things. Let's recap. I really thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned something. I hope I gave you something to think about here, okay? I'm not trying to advocate specific techniques for riding, because to be honest, I'm not an expert. I can't tell you how to trail brake, okay, perfectly. I can't tell you how to, perfectly roll on the throttle, or how to select the perfect line, or do this or that. That's something that you kind of have to find for yourself. You have to develop your own riding style. What I can implore you to do to get better is to take classes. These streets, these roads, as beautiful as they may be, are not the place to improve your skills. Okay? The consequences of simple mistakes are extremely dire. Okay? So please, take some classes. Practice in parking lots before you get out on the roads. So let's go over the deadly sins one more time. Throttle and lean angle. Don't add throttle while you're adding lean angle. You'll probably get away with it, but when you don't get away with it, you're going to really, really be hurting. Number 2, charging corners. You probably won't get away with this one. But if you do get away with it, you won't forget it. You will remember when you charge that corner. Number 3, outriding your knowledge of the corner. This is going to cause you to charge the corner or apply throttle and lean angle or any number of things. Keep your ego in check and ride the corner. Number 4, following riders in front of you. Ride your own ride, guys. And number 5, riding impaired. Don't do it. Alright, guys, thanks. Think about your riding.